Hello, and welcome to this special episode of The Future is Socialist. I'm your host, Emberly McCullough, and today we're going to be talking about the 5 I's. The 5 I's. The 5 I's, according to Wikipedia, is an intelligence alliance comprising Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These countries are parties to the multilateral UK-USA agreement, a treaty for joint cooperation in signals intelligence. Let's find out what signals intelligence means. Signal intelligence. Here we go. Signal intelligence. Okay. Here we go. NSA.gov frequently asked questions. Let's see. What is signals intelligence? Signals intelligence involves collecting foreign intelligence from communications and information systems and providing it to customers across the U.S. government, such as senior civilian and military officials. They then use the information to help protect our troops, support our allies, fight terrorism, combat international crime and narcotics, support diplomatic negotiations, and advance many other important national objectives. NSA CSS collects SIGINT, that's signals intelligence, SIGINT, from various sources, including foreign communications, radar, and other electronic systems. This information is frequently in foreign languages and dialects, is protected by codes and other security measures, and involves complex technical characteristics. NSA CSS needs to collect and understand this information, interpret it, and get it to our customers in time for them to take action. Our workforce is deeply skilled in a wide range of highly technical fields. Experts develop and employ state-of-the-art tools and systems that are essential to success in today's fast-changing communications and information environment. Our researchers are working constantly to help us anticipate and prepare for future developments. How are the activities of the NSA CSS regulated and who monitors them? The U.S. Constitution, federal law, executive order, and regulations of the executive branch govern NSA's activities. As a defense agency, NSA operates under the authority of the Department of Defense. As a member of the intelligence community, NSA also operates under the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. NSA CSS activities are subject to strict scrutiny and oversight both from the outside and from within. External bodies such as the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the President's Intelligence Oversight Board, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Justice provide oversight to ensure the agency's adherence to U.S. laws and regulations. Internally, the Office of the Inspector General conducts inspections, audits, and investigations to make certain that NSA CSS operates with integrity, efficiency, and effectiveness, while the Office of the General Counsel provides legal advice. Most importantly, each NSA CSS employee is charged with knowing, understanding, and obeying to the fullest the laws of the nation. What defines the intelligence role of NSA CSS? Executive Order 12333 authorizes agencies of the intelligence community to obtain reliable intelligence information consistent with applicable federal law and EO 12333 with full consideration of the rights of U.S. persons. Pursuant to EO 12333, NSA is authorized to collect, process, analyze, produce, and disseminate signals intelligence information and data for foreign intelligence and counterintelligence purposes to support national and departmental missions and to provide signals intelligence support for the conduct of military operations. The executive order, however, prohibits the collection, retention, or dissemination of information about U.S. persons except pursuant to procedures established by the head of the agency and approved by the Attorney General. Who is considered a U.S. person? Federal law and executive order define a U.S. person as a citizen of the United States, an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence, an unincorporated association with a substantial number of members who are citizens of the U.S. or aliens lawfully admitted for permanent residence, or a corporation that is incorporated in the U.S. That last one should not be considered a U.S. person. Corporations should not be considered people. They're made up of people, but a corporation is not a person. 5. Are persons outside of the U.S. afforded protection? Yes. The privacy rights of U.S. persons are protected regardless of their location. Couldn't NSA simply ask its allies to provide them with the information about U.S. persons? No, NSA is prohibited from requesting any person to undertake activities that NSA itself is prohibited from conducting. How does the NSA CSS ensure its employees are aware of and abide by the regulations? The NSA CSS conducts extensive training of its employees to ensure that the workforce is aware and understands the regulations governing NSA CSS activities. The members of the NSA CSS workforce charged with foreign intelligence production receive very specific training advising them of their responsibility to protect the privacy of U.S. persons. Access to intelligence information is contingent upon the completion of such training sessions. Okay, so that's what signals intelligence, SIGINT, is. Now that we know that, we can move back on to the Five Eyes. The origins of the Five Eyes can be traced back to informal secret meetings during World War II between British and U.S. codebreakers that started before the U.S. entry into the war, followed by the Atlantic Charter agreed by the Allies to lay out their goals for a post-war world. Canadian academic Sheridan Vucedic argues that the alliance emerged from Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech given at Westminster College, Missouri in 1946. In particular, Churchill's belief the conflict with Soviet sphere of influence would become a hot war unless the English-speaking democracies learned to cooperate. Neither the sure prevention of war nor the continuous rise of world organization will be gained without what I have called the fraternal association of the English-speaking peoples. This means a special relationship between the British Commonwealth and Empire and the United States, the continuance of the intimate relationship between our military advisors leading to common study of potential dangers. Yeah, that was part of Winston Churchill's speech. As the Cold War deepened, the intelligence sharing arrangement became formalized under the Echelon surveillance system in the 1960s. This was initially developed by the Five Eyes to monitor the communications of the former Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc, although it is now used to monitor communications worldwide. In the late 1990s, the existence of Echelon was disclosed to the public, triggering a major debate in the European Parliament and, to a lesser extent, the United States Congress. The Five Eyes further expanded their surveillance capabilities during the course of the War on Terror, with much emphasis placed on monitoring the World Wide Web. The former NSA contractor Edward Snowden described the Five Eyes as a supranational intelligence organization that does not answer to the known laws of its own countries. Documents leaked by Snowden in 2013 revealed that the Five Eyes have been spying on one another's citizens and sharing the collected information with each other in order to circumvent restrictive domestic regulations on surveillance of citizens. In spite of continued controversy over its methods, the Five Eyes relationship remains one of the most comprehensive known espionage alliances in history. Since processed intelligence is gathered from multiple sources, the intelligence shared is not restricted to signals intelligence and often involves defense intelligence as well as human intelligence and geospatial intelligence. Organizations. The following table provides an overview of most of the Five Eye agencies involved in such forms of data sharing. The country, Australia. The Australian Secret Intelligence Service, abbreviation ASIS, role Human Intelligence. Australian Signals Directorate, ASD, Signal Intelligence. Australian Security Intelligence Organization, ASIO, Security Intelligence. Australian Geospatial Intelligence Organization, AGO, Geointelligence. Defense Intelligence Organization, DIO, Defense Intelligence. That's just from Australia. Next, we have Canada. Canadian Forces Intelligence Command, CFINTCOM, Defense Intelligence, Geointelligence, and Human Intelligence. The Communications Security Establishment, CSE, Signal Intelligence. Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, Human Intelligence, Security Intelligence. Now we move on to New Zealand. Directorate of Defense Intelligence and Security, DDIS, Defense Intelligence. Government Communications Security Bureau, GCSB, Signal Intelligence. New Zealand Security Intelligence Service, NZASIS, Human Intelligence. And now we move on to the UK. Defense Intelligence, DI, Defense Intelligence. Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ, Signal Intelligence. Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, SIS, Human Intelligence. And then we get to the United States. The Central Intelligence Agency, also known as the CIA, which is human intelligence. The Defense Intelligence Agency, also known as DIA, Defense Intelligence. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Security Intelligence. National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, Geointelligence. I didn't even know we had that. National Security Agency, NSA, Signal Intelligence. All right, now we're going to get into some history, the origins from 1941 to the 1950s. The earliest origins of the Five Eyes Alliance are secret meetings between British and U.S. codebreakers at the British code-breaking establishment at Bletchley Park in February 1941, before the U.S. entry into the war. A February 1941 entry in the diary of Alastair Denniston, head of Bletchley Park, reading, "The Wise are coming," Wise referring to Yanks, is the first record, followed by Wise arrive on 10 February. The British and U.S. agencies shared extremely confidential information, including the British breaking of the German Enigma Code and the U.S. breaking of the Japanese Purple Code. From then, key figures traveled back and forth across the Atlantic, including Denniston and code-breaking expert Alan Turing. The practical relationship established for wartime signals intelligence developed into a formal signed agreement at the start of the post-war Cold War. The formal Five Eyes Alliance can be traced back to the Atlantic Charter, which was issued in August 1941 to lay out the Allied goals for a post-World War. On 17th of May, 1943, the British-U.S. Communication Intelligence Agreement, also known as BRUSA, B-R-U-S-A, agreement, was signed by the UK and US governments to facilitate cooperation between the US War Department and the British Government Code and Cipher School. On March 5, 1946, the secret treaty was formalized as the UK-USA Agreement, which forms the basis for all signal intelligence cooperation between the NSA and GCHQ to this day. In 1948, the treaty was extended to include Canada, followed by Norway in 1952, Denmark in 1954, West Germany 1955, Australia 1956, and New Zealand 1956. These countries participated in the alliance as third parties. By 1955, the formal status of the remaining Five Eyes countries was officially acknowledged in a newer version of the UK-USA agreement that contained the following statement. At this time, only Canada, Australia, and New Zealand will be regarded as UK-USA collaborating Commonwealth countries. The Five Eyes term has its origins as a shorthand for Aus, Can, NZ, UK, US, Eyes only. The Aus, Can, Zucus releasability caveat. Cold War. During the Cold War, generally accepted to be approximately the period 1947 to 1991, GCHQ and the NSA shared intelligence on the Soviet Union, the People's Republic of China, and several Eastern European countries known as exotics. Over the course of several decades, the Echelon surveillance network was developed to monitor the military and diplomatic communications of the Soviet Union and its Eastern Bloc allies. During the Vietnam War, Australian and New Zealand operators in the Asia-Pacific region worked directly to support the United States, while GCHQ operators stationed in the then British colony of Hong Kong were tasked with monitoring North Vietnamese air defense networks. During the Falklands War, the British received intelligence data from its Five Eyes allies such as Australia, as well as from third parties such as Norway and France. In the aftermath of the Gulf War, a technician of the ASIS was used by SIS to bug Kuwaiti government offices. In the 1950s, SIS and the CIA jointly orchestrated the overthrow of Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. In the 1960s, SIS and the CIA jointly orchestrated the assassination of the Congolese independence leader Patrice Lumumba. In the 1970s, the ASIS and the CIA jointly orchestrated the overthrow of Chile's President Salvador Allende. During the Tiananmen Square protests of 1989, SIS and the CIA took part in Operation Yellowbird to rescue dissidents from the Chinese regime. Echelon Network Disclosures 1972 to 2000. By the end of the 20th century, the Echelon surveillance network had evolved into a global system capable of sweeping up massive amounts of private and commercial communications, including telephone calls, fax, email, and other data traffic. This was done through the interception of communication bearers such as satellite transmission and public switched telephone networks. The Five Eyes has two types of information collecting methods, the PRISM program and the upstream collection system. The PRISM program gathers user information from technology firms such as Google, Apple, and Microsoft, while the upstream system gathers information directly from the communications of civilians via fiber cables and infrastructure as data flows past. The program's first disclosure to the public came in 1972 when a former NSA communications analyst reported to Ramparts magazine that the NSA had developed technology that could crack all Soviet codes. In 1988, Duncan Campbell revealed in the New Statesman the existence of Echelon, an extension of the UK-USA Agreement on Global Signals Intelligence, SIGINT. The story, Somebody's Listening, detailed how the eavesdropping operations were not only being employed in the interests of national security, but were regularly abused for corporate espionage in the service of U.S. business interests. The piece passed largely unnoticed outside of journalism circles. In 1996, a detailed description of Echelon was provided by New Zealand journalist Nikki Hager in a book titled Secret Power, New Zealand's Role in the International Spy Network, which was cited by the European Parliament in a 1998 report titled An Appraisal of the Technology of Political Control, PE 168-.184. On 16th of March 2000, the Parliament called for a resolution on the Five Eyes and their Echelon surveillance network, which, if passed, would have called for the complete dismantling of Echelon. 3 months later, the Temporary Committee on Echelon was set up by the European Parliament to investigate the Echelon surveillance network. However, according to a number of European politicians such as Esko Seppänen of Finland, these investigations were hindered by the European Commission. In the United States, congressional legislators warned that the Echelon system could be used to monitor U.S. citizens. On 14th of May 2001, the U.S. government canceled all meetings with the Temporary Committee on Echelon. According to a BBC report in May 2001, the U.S. government still refuses to admit that Echelon even exists. The War on Terror since 2001. See also Global Surveillance. In the aftermath of the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the surveillance capabilities of the Five Eyes were greatly increased as part of the global war on terror. During the run-up to the Iraq War, the communications of UN Weapons Inspector Hans Blix were monitored by the Five Eyes. The office of the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan was bugged by British agents. An NSA memo detailed plans of the Five Eyes to boost eavesdropping on UN delegations of 6 countries as part of a dirty tricks campaign to apply pressure on these 6 countries to vote in favor of using force against Iraq. SIS and the CIA forged a surveillance partnership with Libya's ruler Muammar Gaddafi to spy on Libyan dissidents in the West, in exchange for permission to use Libya as a base for extraordinary renditions. As of 2010, the Five Eyes also have access to CyberNet, the U.S. government's classified version of the Internet. In 2013, documents leaked by the former NSA contractor Edward Snowden revealed the existence of numerous surveillance programs jointly operated by the Five Eyes. The following list includes several notable examples reported in the media. PRISM, operated by the NSA together with GCHQ and the ASD. X-Keyscore, operated by the NSA with contributions from the ASD and the GCSB. Tempora, operated by GCHQ with contributions from the NSA. Muscular, operated by GCHQ and the NSA. Stateroom, operated by the ASD, CIA, CSE, GHQ, and NSA. In March 2014, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, ordered Australia to stop spying on East Timor. This marks the first such restrictions imposed on a member of the Five Eyes. In November 2020, the Five Eyes Alliance criticized China's rules which disqualified elected legislators in Hong Kong. Competition with China since 2018. On December 1st, 2018, Ming Wanzhou Zhao, a Huawei executive, was arrested by Canadian authorities at Vancouver International Airport in order to face charges of fraud and conspiracy in the U.S. China responded by arresting 2 Canadian nationals. According to the South China Morning Post, this conflict was seen by analysts as the beginning of a direct clash between the CCP's leadership of China and members of the Five Eyes Alliance. In the months that followed, the United States placed restrictions on technology exchanges with China. Following prompting by parliamentarians in Australia and by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the UK government announced it would reduce the presence of Huawei technology in its 5G network to 0. The newspaper reported that these events were seen by Beijing as a political warfare waged with the world's oldest intelligence agent alliance, the Five Eyes. The Five Eyes Alliance is sort of an artifact of the post-World War II era, where the Anglophone countries are the major powers banded together to sort of cooperate and share the costs of intelligence gathering infrastructure. The result of this was over decades and decades some sort of a supranational intelligence organization that doesn't answer to the laws of its own countries. Edward Snowden. Domestic espionage sharing controversy. In recent years, documents of the Five Eyes have shown that they are intentionally spying on one another's citizens and sharing the collected information with each other. Shami Chakrabarti, the director of the advocacy group Liberty, claimed that the Five Eyes alliance increases the ability of member states to subcontract their dirty work to each other. The former NSA contractor Edward Snowden described the Five Eyes as a supranational intelligence organization that doesn't answer to the laws of its own countries. As the result of Snowden's disclosures, the Five Eye Alliance has become the subject of a growing amount of controversy in parts of the world. Canada. In late 2013, Canadian federal judge Richard Mosley strongly rebuked the TFIS for outsourcing its surveillance of Canadians to overseas partner agencies. A 51-page court ruling asserts that the TFIS and other Canadian federal agencies have been illegally enlisting Five Eyes allies in global surveillance dragnets while keeping domestic federal courts in the dark. New Zealand. In 2014, the NZSIS and the GSCB of New Zealand were asked by the New Zealand Parliament to clarify if they had received any monetary contributions from members of the Five Eyes Alliance. Both agencies withheld relevant information and refused to disclose any possible monetary contributions from the Five Eyes. David Cunliffe, leader of the Labour Party, asserted that the public is entitled to be informed. European Union. In early 2014, the European Parliament's Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs released a draft report which confirmed that the intelligence agencies of New Zealand and Canada have cooperated with the NSA under Five Eyes program and may have been actively sharing the personal data of EU citizens. Other international cooperatives. Since the addition of two members in 1956, the specific Five Eyes consist of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the United States. Further, there is a group of nations termed third-party partners who share their intelligence with the Five Eyes. While the Five Eyes is a very specific agreement with specific operations amongst the five nations, other non-Five Eyes sharing agreements have been set up independently and for specific purposes. For example, according to Edward Snowden, the NSA has a massive body called the Foreign Affairs Directorate that is responsible for partnering with foreign countries. Six Eyes. According to the news magazine L'Obs in 2009, the United States proposed to France to join the Five Eyes that would then have become the Six Eyes. Nicolas Sarkozy, however, made the requirement to be granted the same status as other allies, including the signing of a no-spy agreement. This requirement was approved by the director of the NSA, but not by the director of the CIA, and furthermore, not by President Barack Obama, resulting in a refusal from France. In 2013, it was reported that Germany was interested in joining the Five Eyes Alliance. At that time, several members of the United States Congress, including Tim Ryan and Charles Dent, were pushing for Germany's entrance to the Five Eyes Alliance. Israel, Singapore, South Korea, and Japan are all collaborating with Five Eyes. Five Eyes plus 3 against China and Russia. Five Eyes and reportedly a group of other like-minded partners such as France, Germany, and Japan since early 2018 introduced an information-sharing framework to counter threats arising from foreign activities of China as well as Russia. Five Eyes plus 3 against North Korea. Five Eyes in France, Japan, and South Korea tied up intelligence information sharing about North Korea's military activities, including ballistic missiles. Nine Eyes. The Nine Eyes is a different arrangement that consists of the same members of Five Eyes working with Denmark, France, the Netherlands, and Norway. 14 Eyes. According to a document leaked by Edward Snowden, there is another working agreement amongst 14 nations officially known as SIGINT Seniors Europe, or SSEUR. These 14 Eyes consist of the same members of the Nine Eyes, plus Belgium, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Sweden. Further intelligence sharing collaborations. As spelled out by Privacy International, there are a number of issue-specific intelligence agreements that include some or all of the above nations and numerous others, such as an area-specific sharing amongst the 41 nations that form the Allied Coalition in Afghanistan, a shared effort of the Five Eyes nation and focused cooperation on computer network exploitation with Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Japan, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and Turkey. The Club of Bern, 17 members including primarily European states. The U.S. is not a member. Maximator, an intelligence alliance between Denmark, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and Sweden. The Counterterrorist Group, a wider membership than the 17 European states that make up the Club of Bern, and includes the U.S. NATO Special Committee, made up of the heads of the security services of NATO's 30 member countries. Lists of Five Eyes surveillance targets. Notable individuals. As the surveillance capabilities of the Five Eyes continue to increase to keep up pace with technological advancements, a global surveillance system has been gradually developed to capture the communications of entire populations across national borders. The following list contains a handful of targets of the Five Eyes who are public figures in various fields. In order for a person to be included in the list, there must be well-documented evidence based on reliable sources such as leaked or declassified documents or whistleblower accounts, which demonstrate that the person involved is or was intentionally targeted for Five Eyes surveillance. Charlie Chaplin, 1889 to 1977, surveillance agencies were the MI5 and the FBI. A British comedian, filmmaker, and composer who rose to fame in the silent era, Charlie Chaplin became one of the most important figures in the film industry through his screen persona, the Tramp. Due to his alleged ties to communism, he was placed under surveillance in the early 1950s by MI5 agents who acted on behalf of the FBI as part of a campaign to banish him from the U.S. Strom Thurmond, 1902 to 2003. Various surveillance agencies. A Dixiecrat candidate in the 1948 U.S. presidential election, Strom Thurmond represented South Carolina in the United States Senate from 1954 until 2003, when he became 100 years old and was recognized at that time as the longest-serving senator in U.S. history. In 1988, Margaret Newsham, a Lockheed employee, told a closed-door session of the United States Congress that Thurmond's telephone calls were being intercepted by the Five Eyes via their Echelon surveillance program system. Nelson Mandela, who lived from 1918 to 2013, the CIA and the SIS, the British SIS. A South African activist, lawyer, and philanthropist who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999, Nelson Mandela was denounced as a terrorist by critics and was placed under surveillance by British SIS agents. In 1962, Mandela was arrested after details of his activities were picked up by the CIA and handed over to local authorities. Yeah, thanks a lot, CIA. Jane Fonda, who's still alive, born in 1937, GCHQ, and the NSA. An American actress, writer, political activist, and former fashion model. Due to her political activism, her communications, as well as those of her husband, Tom Hayden, were intercepted by GCHQ and handed over to the NSA. Ali Khamenei, 1939, he was born, still alive. He was surveilled by GCHQ and NSA. A Shia cleric and a former president of Iran, Ali Khamenei is the current supreme leader of Iran. During a rare visit to Iranian Kurdistan in 2009, he and his entourage were targeted for surveillance under a high-tech espionage mission involving the analysis and processing of satellite imagery. The operation was jointly conducted by GCHQ and the NSA. John Lennon, who lived from 1940 to 1980, by the FBI and MI5. A British musician, songwriter, and a lead singer of the Beatles, John Lennon engaged in anti-war activism through several iconic songs such as Give Peace a Chance and Happy Xmas War is Over. In 1971, he moved to New York City to join activists in the United States to protest against the Vietnam War. Over the next 12 months, the U.S. government launched an extensive surveillance operation to monitor his activities and to deport him back to Britain. The operation was conducted by the FBI with the help of MI5. Ehud Olmert, who was born in 1949 by GCHQ and NSA. An Israeli politician, lawyer, and former mayor of Jerusalem, Ehud Olmert was the 12th prime minister of Israel. He and the Israeli Minister of Defense, Ehud Barak, were included in a list of surveillance targets used by GCHQ and the NSA. Next is Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, born in 1949 by the ASD and the NSA. A former chief military observer of the United Nations peacekeeping force in Bosnia and former president of Indonesia, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and his wife were placed under surveillance by the ASD, which shared details of the operation with the NSA. Angela Merkel, born in 1954, various agencies. A German politician, former research scientist, and the Chancellor of Germany since 2005, Angela Merkel's phone communications were monitored by the Special Collection Service, which is part of the stateroom surveillance program of the Five Eyes. Diana, Princess of Wales, 1961 to 1997, GCHQ and NSA. A firm opponent of the international usage of landmines, the Princess of Wales was placed under surveillance by GCHQ and the NSA, which kept a top-secret file on her containing more than 1,000 pages. The contents of Diana's NSA file have not been disclosed because of national security concerns. Kim.com, born in 1974, still alive, by the FBI and GCSB. A German-Finnish internet entrepreneur, businessman, and hacktivist, Kim.com, born Kim Schmitz, is the founder of the file hosting service Mega Upload. On behalf of the FBI, the GCSB of New Zealand conducted illegal surveillance on .com. Prime Minister John Key later issued an apology for the GCSB's illegal surveillance. Here's some notable organizations that have been under surveillance. Aeroflot, the Russian airline. Al Jazeera, the Qatari Broadcasting Network. MasterCard, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, Visa Inc. The Thales Group from France. Petrobras in Brazil, and Total SA in France. Google in the USA, Yahoo in the USA. Telecom operators, Alcatel-Lucent, France. Belgacom, Belgium. PACNet, Singapore. United Nations, the UN General Assembly has been surveilled. The UN Institute for Disarmament Research, the UN Children's Fund, the UN's Development Program, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Universities, Tsinghua University in China, the Raqqa Institute of Physics at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. You can see also Anglosphere, Abcan's Armies, Air and Space Interoperability Council, Border 5, Five Country Conference, Five Nations Passport Group, the Technical Cooperation Program. And here from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the National Counterintelligence and Security Services, Five Eyes Intelligence Oversight and Review Council, FIORC. FIORC was created in the spirit of existing Five Eyes partnership, the intelligence alliance comprising Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. FIORC is comprised of the following non-political intelligence oversight, review, and security entities of the Five Eyes countries: the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence and Security of Australia, the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency of Canada, the Office of Intelligence Commissioner of Canada, the Commissioner of Intelligence Warrants, and the Office of Inspector General of Intelligence and Security of New Zealand, the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office of the UK, the Office of the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community of the United States. The council members exchange views on subjects of mutual interest and concern, compare best practices in review and oversight methodology, explore areas where cooperation on reviews and the sharing of results is permitted where appropriate, encourage transparency to the largest extent possible to enhance public trust, and maintain contact with political offices, oversight and review committees, and non-Five Eyes countries as appropriate. And we could go over the charter, but I don't think we want to do that today. So this is me, Emberly McCullough, signing off for The Future is Socialist. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great day.